Of course, if you're living in Paris, partir.
Alors, pour répondre à cette question, je vais commencer par vous dire
I live in the academy of...
It doesn't even make sense, it's so weird. But honestly, maybe it can work.
What? Today is weird. Today is awkward. I don't know why. I'm just feeling so awkward today for some reason. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. Let me just give you a moment to subscribe. By the way, if you have not yet caught up on episode 3, talking about the arrival and the realities that hit when we first arrived in France, you're missing out. So let's get straight into this video. So the topic of the day today is
Well, I am in Versailles Academy and I happen to live in Versailles city itself. One thing you need to be keen about is that when they say a certain academy, that in no way guarantees that you're going to be in that city itself. Being in Lyon Academy, for instance, does not mean being in Lyon city. And even in my case, I live in Versailles city, but my school is 1 hour away from Versailles city itself. Well, I mean, unless you're in Paris. If you're placed in Paris Academy, it means you will be in one of the districts of Paris.
Yeah. So I got picked for Académie de Lyon, which is exactly where I wanted to go to. But then again, they picked me for a city outside of Lyon called Saint-Etienne, which is now where I live. It's a really nice city once you get settled in.
I work in Académie de Lyon, but in Lyon it's big, so I live in a place called Firminy and I work in a place called Chambon-Fresh Hall. They're really close to each other. It's literally a 10-minute bus ride. I can go home for lunch and come back.
yeah, so I'm in Grenoble Academy. So when I first got the news that I'm in Grenoble Academy, I thought that I'd be in Grenoble, like, yeah, but it's actually not the case. Grenoble is just like the academic region I am in. So the place where I actually live is a small town called Chambéry.
I live with a family it's like their basement. It has its own room, bedroom, bathroom, kitchen. Yeah, it's just like a mini house within a house. So that's where I live. I pay 280 to live in that house, so it's not expensive. But if I had to choose, I wouldn't stay there again. I don't really like it. Living in a basement is not for me. Why? It's not bright. It's quite small. There's not a lot of space. There's no like living room. There's no place where I can just lounge other than my bed, which I don't like. Especially in times like this, because coronavirus, you have to stay home all day. Imagine the only place you can sit is your bed. That is tragic. It's not where I am right now though. Yeah, because you see, I wouldn't survive. Yeah, I don't know, if I had a choice, I would have an apartment. You pay a little more for that, around 350, but for me it's worth the mental health. So
Okay, so basically I chose a room in an apartment, which is what happens for most cases when you're looking for an apartment. So that definitely leaves room for getting roommates and the likes. So that is exactly what I did, but I ended up not getting roommates, so I have lived by myself all this time. Yes, it makes me feel so happy. Yes.
Okay, so when I first arrived in France, I was staying when I first arrived in France, I was staying at my teacher's house, And then after I looked for I looked and finally decided on moving into like a student housing. It wasn't a student housing, it was actually hostels. Can I really call them hostels? Yes, they were kind of like hostels of French students who were in boarding schools. So I was allowed to stay there as a teaching assistant. So it was just a room with a bed, a desk, and and everything. And I liked the good thing about the place was that it was cheap. Yeah, it was really cheap. It was around 120 euros, which was quite good given the amount of salary I was receiving. So for me, that was perfect. The only disadvantages were that you could not cook. So the kitchen was equipped with a microwave, a kettle, and a sink to wash dishes, and a sitting area, but it didn't have like a source of heat, like where I can cook like food like from scratch or something. So that was one of the disadvantages, but I could eat from the school at the school canteen, so that was something. Another thing about the place was that I liked the place at first, but during the weekends everyone would go. So I mentioned that it was a dorm, like it was like a dorm hostel. Yeah, let's call it dorm or hostel. So during the weekend the French kids go home, and it's a huge ass building. So you can imagine during the weekends I used to feel so alone, like there's no one. Hey, I was like in those horror movies things. That's how I used to feel. So that really used to scare me. Like I've been a bit of a fearful person all my life. So you can imagine staying in a place where you're alone for a whole weekend. Baka unasikia echo, those ones. I couldn't. That for me was it used to really torture me. Like I used to be so scared. I ran through the corridor or something, or heading to the kitchen or something. It was just a lot. It was scary. And then it was those ones just straight out of the horror movie. The lights in the corridors used to be sensors, so they only go on when you're out there. And then sometimes it go off if you're still working or if you've stayed there for long. And then that green thing for fire exit, oh my god, it was so freaky. As in that was so scary for me, and it used to really play around in me. And then also the fact that I couldn't have heating during the holidays because the kids were out. So that was so due to that, even though the hostel was cost effective and everything, I felt like it would be nice if maybe I was a student there and I'd get to go home during the weekends. But you see, that was a place where I was staying permanently, so that just did not work out for me. Like it was just bad for me psychologically. So it was good for my financial gains, but it was bad for me psychologically. So I started looking for another place to move. So after looking and really looking, eventually I found somebody who mentioned that they don't really stay in their house in Chambéry a lot, so I can move in there and stay in their house while they're not there. Exactly. So that is exactly why I'm living here. It's an apartment, fully furnished. Yes, but it belongs to someone else. The person is never really here, so it's basically mine while I'm here.
My housing situation is such a big miracle. I currently live with a French family in Versailles. The family consists of 5, 3 kids and 2 parents there. And what what happens is that in exchange for a room in their very beautiful house, I look after their kids about 25 hours a week, and they also give me some allowance for it, and it's been a very beautiful experience, to be honest. And the biggest advantage of this kind of housing is that first you get to learn French, because I interact every day with the kids in French. I have them do their homeworks in French. Everything that happens in this house happens in French, so that has helped me to learn a little French. And second, it's been a great cultural exchange program, because I have gotten to understand the French culture right from the French themselves, and even understand how they pick certain kind of foods and why they prefer this to that, just tiny things that you wouldn't really notice unless you got it from like the people themselves. And it's also been an opportunity for me to grow as a person, because I had to like grow out of my comfort zone, because you live with people you don't really know. You just can't lock yourself in your room and just be like you in your mother's house. I had to try and reach out, and I think that has helped me to grow in certain aspects.
So this is the one thing that is dependent on which area of France you're coming from. So for example, if you're living in, of course, if you're living in Paris, it's definitely going to be very expensive. If you're also living in the south coast, it's definitely going to be expensive, because those are like touristic areas. If I was actually going to be living in Lyon, I would be suffering because I got to notice that the rent there is much more expensive. But here in Saint-Etienne, the rent is, let me start from 290 to maybe 400. If you're definitely living in like a studio apartment, it's going to be 400 plus. But yes, 290 to 400. Let me just go with that.
I live somewhere like where I live around Firminy, Saint-Etienne. The prices, I know people who live in the school who pay as little as 150, I think, to people who pay as much as 370. So it's in that range, but mostly between 300 and 350. Around there, you get a house plus amenities plus everything.
Before talking about the price, it's important to first point out the housing options that you have when you come into this program. First, you could get accommodated in your school, and this is a very convenient option because it saves you the whole hassle, and God knows there is so much hassle, the whole hassle of having to find a house and the whole panic that comes with it. And I think all through France, maybe this should range between 150 to 300 euros, but within Ile-de-France, which happens to be my region, I don't know, I think if you come into this region, just be ready to be generous with your money, because well, you could get accommodated in school. Second, you can rent in a French person's apartment or in a French person's house. And in this case, I think within my region, I would say it would range from a minimum of 350 euros, if I'm being completely honest. And this is an option I also exploited. I once lived at someone's house and I used to pay 400 euros. Then you can find an accommodation where you give services in exchange of a room, which is what I am doing. And in that case, maybe I think it's the luckiest and the best, because you don't have to really spend anything, and maybe there could be an allowance. So it really depends.
In my academy, in my town, the price range of housing, to get good housing, the price range is between 300 euros. It starts from 300 euros to like 500 or 600. But you can even get higher. If you have the chums, you can get to higher priced apartment. So most of the people here, like with such situations, most of the language assistants would either take up colocation. That means you're living with roommates in your house, and that would vary between. It depends on how the place you're going to looks like.
The family. That's how I found the house. I live with a family that's where I work. Basically, the principal of the school is friends with the lady of the house where I live, and she told her she has a free place. It's like
so I was actually very blessed because my contacts did literally everything for me. I remember coming to France, I didn't have accommodation, and she was like, oh, she offered, I didn't ask, which makes me feel even better. And she was like, oh, if you don't have a place to stay, you can stay with me for the week as we look for places to stay. So she made all the calls, she booked all the appointments for me, and everything was just coming to place. Like, I didn't even have to do anything because she knew who to call, she knew what to say, she knew what to do. And when she was taking us for like these house tours, she would tell us like the pros and cons of the houses, which made it really amazing when you finally come to make that decision.
So for the first time when I found the housing, for the first time when I was looking for housing, I looked in sites like Le Bon Coin. Le Bon Coin is a site where you post everything in France, everything. So if you're looking for housing, I'd advise you to start there. So Le Bon Coin, so that's where I started looking for housing, but that is not how I found my housing. I found my house, the first housing I found, the hostel was at, someone mentioned to my teacher about the whole hostel thing, and yeah, so she is the one who referred me to the whole hostel thing. The other housing, the place where I am staying currently, it is by networking. Okay, not really networking, but by making friends and talking. So a certain evening, I'm so tired, I'm speaking to one of the friends I had met. I'm speaking to one of the friends I had met, a French woman, and I'm telling her about my day, and then I was describing to her an experience where I went and saw a house, but eventually at night the proprietor, like the person renting out the house, told me that the roommates did not choose me, they chose to settle with another person. So I was describing to her the day, and she's the one who referred me to the lady who was not staying much at her house. Yes, so you talk to people.
Housing in France is generally really expensive, and that will depend on the region that you decide to work in. If you decide to work in Paris or the south of France, you're bound to pay a lot of money, and that could be even more than half of your salary, so it's a bit tricky. But a relief is that we have CAF, which is aid from the government. It's not guaranteed. They calculate it depending on your salary and the amount of money that you're paying for rent, and then they can give you maybe 100 euros, 200 euros to help with your rent, and then that makes it easier for you to afford accommodation. But again, it is not a guarantee. It's just something that might happen. It takes a lot of time to mature, so it can be frustrating. So yeah, but finding the housing in the first place is actually not the easiest of tasks. But we have sites such as Le Bon Coin and Les Cartes de Coloc where you're able to find housing. And what most of these landlords are asking of you when you're finding housing, might ask of you, is that you have a guarantor. A guarantor is someone who, it's just a guarantor like when you're getting a loan, really. And then you must pay down payment for some houses, and the down payment can be maybe 1 month of rent, or for others 3 months of rent. So let's say if you're paying 400 euros as your rent, multiply that by 3, that's 1,200 euros as down payment. So you have to calculate this amount of money before you can, but please try and find housing that does not require you to pay all this much money to relieve the financing.
My advice to you for finding housing would be ask your teachers to put you in contact with people who've been assistants in their school before. Ask people where they stayed. There's a lot of groups on Facebook and stuff like that where you can ask people who worked in your school or in your academy where they stayed. That's how a lot of people got their apartments, from referrals. Or you can just go online. Le Bon Coin You can go on that site. I messaged a lot of people and I didn't always get replies, but you can check there. You can if you come to the place, you can also, there are offices where you can go and you get people who do these kind of things, like they find apartments for you. You just have to pay them a fee. I know people who did that as well. There's so many things you can do. Actually, you can actually ask on Airbnb. There are people who rent their Airbnbs for long periods of time. They don't show that on the app, because on the Airbnb app that's not an option, but you can ask them if they do that in that area, and a lot of them do, especially like during the winter, fall, winter, spring, because summer they'll give people the house to rent for holiday, but during fall, winter, spring they often rent their houses to students or people like us. So you can ask there. There's so many people you can ask. Yeah, just don't be shy to ask everyone you can ask. You'll always find a place to stay.
After being in this apartment for I think 6 months now, I'm not even sure, like this is what quarantine is doing to me right now. I think I've been here for 6 months, yes. I have come to realize that proximity to services, to amenities is very important. So make sure wherever it is you're staying is close to maybe the bus stop or a supermarket or a pharmacy or just things like that, so that you don't have to move for long distances in order to get the services. Also, if you're a city person, if you like enjoying the city, how close is it to the city? How far is it to the city? Because I do live like 30 minutes from the city on foot. But when I'm using the tram, it's 15 minutes, which works just fine. But sometimes I think it's still quite far, considering all my friends used to live in the city, in Centreville. So consider the proximity to Centreville. Also, it is very important, especially if you like having good views of the sunrise or the sunset. I'd tell you not to live on the first floor, because I live on the first floor and my view is the building opposite me, so it really doesn't please me at all. So also the roommates. When I say roommates, I mean how many rooms does that house have? If you are someone who really enjoys your own privacy, make sure you pick a place where all the amenities are in your room. For example, there are houses we did see that had like a joined wardrobe, like it's just the bed in your room but the wardrobes are outside. That is not ideal for me, because I want everything where I can see it, you know. Also, if you're someone who is very sensitive to the gender, make sure that you know the type of people you're living with. Are they male? Are they female? So these are just a few of the things that I would maybe advise you on. And also getting a good proprietaire, like a landlord, or if you're using an agency, make sure you get a good one. Someone who is not ignorant, someone who understands that you're not a French person in their country. So make sure you're surrounded by people who are actually there for your well-being. You don't know one another, but just make sure you are acquainting yourself with good people.
Situations are different, you see. So there are some people in this program who were lucky enough to find academies or schools that would provide them with housing for free, and then there are some people who've even found housing that's costing around 400 euros or 500 euros or more. So it really depends on your luck. Count your blessings. And also don't really depend on the fact that, oh, I really hope I get free housing. I remember that was me. I really hope I get free housing from my school. My school did not have such an option. So be ready to pay and budget, make your budget. Do some research around your area. As I said, different areas, different cost of living. I know it's really hard to settle on housing and find a particular house, and with given the whole different circumstances, but it's not final. Because for me, the first place I stayed at, I moved from there, and now the place where I'm staying, I'm the most comfortable. So it's not final. So do not have so much pressure. Hakuna pressure, by the way. Choose where you're going to stay at the beginning, and then after, if you feel like it's not suiting you, find another place to move. It's okay. And even if you move and then again you feel like it's not suiting you, move. Yeah. So for me, I thought that the biggest factor to finding housing was finance, but it is a factor, but also you also have to check on other areas of your life. Are you going to be well psychologically over there? For me, being alone in that building used to really freak me out, so that psychologically did not work out for me. So you need to find a place which is going to work out in all areas. For example, you see an announcement that rent is 200 euros. Kindly go and check if everything is included, because sometimes they put out announcements and they don't write that, and they don't write sometimes, yes, kindly check that everything is included. I mean, 200 euros rent, and then on the description says you'll have to pay for your own electricity and your water and this, and then it adds up to like 400 euros. Okay, it's never that huge, but like 100 euros of charges. So make sure you put charges into account as you calculate your rent, because they calculate charges differently. And then something about charges, heat. Make sure you have heating. I did not think heating was something, but heating is a thing. They called utakufa baridi. So
Alright, here is some bonus advice. If there is something I have learned through this program, is that human beings are not self-sufficient. I know that it can be very uncomfortable to rely on other people, and usually we want to have our own proper plans, we want to have our own timing and our own wishes. We have already decided how we want to do things, when we will do them, and we wish for things to happen as we have imagined. Yet in this program there is so much you really do not know, and it would be silly to imagine that you can do it alone. This is a time where you will have to go beyond yourself. You have to look at people around you and see, how can this person help me? How do I deal with this challenge, and how do I use what I have? And I think the strongest of us during this program are those who are able to stick with others. So, and even while preparing in Kenya, do not tell yourself that, oh, I don't want to put my problems out there, I don't want to ask for help. No, push your problems out there. If you're looking for accommodation, let it be known that you're looking for accommodation. Do not be hesitant, do not feel that you will not be putting up a good image by showing that you're in need. Just go all out. If you need something, you need something. There is nothing to be embarrassed about, and heck, nobody can hack it alone.
okay, lovelies, we've come to the end of the video. I hope you've gathered enough information on finding housing here and gotten a bit of tips when you're looking for housing here. If you really enjoy this content and you find a lot of information embedded in these videos, kindly do not forget to subscribe, like, share with anyone who may require this information. And till next time for episode 5. Bye guys.